Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajaka Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Tulsi Priya, for Kirtan, and welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. Tonight we're extremely fortunate to see His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami himself. Thank you, Maharaj. And we are in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 25, tonight starting with text number 19. And very much eager to hear what everyone has to say, especially since Maharaj and I both have laryngitis, and very eagerly waiting to hearing your commentaries. So thank you very much. And if Surabhi Kunj Mata wouldn't mind monitoring the chat. Let's see. Maybe Saraswati Mata, if you'd like to start with the reading, that would be fantastic. Hare Krishna.
Pranams. Actually, I've got to step away for a bit. Can I read the text 20? I'm just in the middle of something. Haribol.
I see. All right. Hare Krishna. Tulsi Priya, are you able to do any reading?
Yes, in 1 second. Sorry to take so long. I was just getting the window open. Okay. 325:19. Na yujyamanaya. Yeah, sorry. Na yujyamanaya bhaktya bhagavatya kilatmani sadrishosti shiva panta yoginam brahmasidhaye. Translation. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. That knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. Na yujyamanaya means without being dovetailed. When there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization, or Brahman realization. The word Brahma Siddhaye means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter, he is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization, or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot have easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. In the beginning of the 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically become manifest. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Pantaha. This is the only auspicious path for self-realization. The path of devotional service is the most confidential means for attaining Brahman realization. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahmajyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi. Beyond that Brahmajyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside that effulgence, Brahmajyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahmajyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there is no question of bhakti. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. Brahma Siddhi through devotional service is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi or Brahman realization, nor is the realization of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect, for Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Akilatma. He is the Super Soul. One who realizes the Supreme Personality realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that total realization is Brahma Siddhi. So I guess I'm supposed to say something. It seems that Prabhupada is focusing on the language, specifically the Brahma Siddhi. And first of all, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Ina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's talking about yogis who are pursuing this Brahman realization, but it seems that this realization, people have misconceptions about it. They think, there's the effulgence and there's the light, and we hear a lot of talk in New Age circles about the light, but and the idea of devotion being a component of attaining that realization is incomplete without understanding of the personality of Godhead. Because it just on the basis of logic, it makes no sense to say that you have devotion or you're a devotee if there's not another person to whom you are devoted. So to simply try to attain this supposedly peak state of Brahman realization through some kind of facsimile of devotion without acknowledging the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is it's pointless, because there has to be the servant and the recipient of service, so for there to be actual devotion. Prabhupada also makes the point that if you engage in devotional service, then knowledge and renunciation in the material world are automatically manifest. So I think sometimes it's sort of an ego thing to pursue renunciation, sort of the last tinge of acquisitiveness. Yes, I have given up so much, but you've given up everything but your false ego because you're proud of your renunciation. What to speak of knowledge? It's easy to be proud of knowledge, but even when you give up everything, you can still be proud of your renunciation. But when we realize that Krishna is the only proprietor, then there's nothing to be proud of, because everything belongs to him anyways, and we're just trying to engage the material energy and the resources of the world in his service. So it's just, you're a good person if you return the rightful property of someone to the owner, to its owner, but it's not something to be overly proud of, just simply doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I think that's all I have to say on it. But yeah, everything's taken care of through devotional service, because it's, the culmination of that is pure love for Krishna. And that pretty much takes care of everything. It encompasses everything. Everything else is incomplete when we pursue it separately.
Kendra Prabhu has a comment in the chat. Building on what Tulsi Priya said, Srila Prabhupada is taking the trouble to clarify Brahma Siddhi by pointing out that without understanding the source of Brahman, one cannot have perfect Siddhi understanding of Brahman. Only when we know the cause can we understand the effects properly. That's true of all kinds of knowledge.
I just wanted to add also that I thought it was interesting and nice that Prabhupada says devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. So it's not even that you have to be perfect in your service, because how perfect can any of us be? But by our desire, our attitude in serving Krishna, even if it's imperfect, then it's perfect. If we have the perfect attitude, if we're humble, if we want to serve. I think of the Brahmana, the illiterate Brahmana, and he was looking at the Bhagavad Gita upside down, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised him, saying, "You are the real scholar," because he was just trying to serve the order of his spiritual master, even though he had no personal capacity to successfully read and understand the Bhagavad Gita. Well, maybe he understood the Bhagavad Gita, but he wasn't reading it properly. So Prabhupada stresses the attitude here, which seems all important. Also prevents the false ego from taking over if we have the right attitude.
Kendra Prabhu said, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary includes this statement. Among the three processes, bhakti is the best, being full of joy and most auspicious in results. Bhakti alone is suitable, yujyamanaya, for realizing Supreme Lord. And Murari Gupta has a question. What are some examples of the knowledge that is revealed by bhakti? Kendra Prabhu says, Bhakti Mam Abhijanati, one can know Krishna. Maharaj says, we can go back to second canto where everything is revealed to Brahma.
I think this is why we have Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, because the second canto seems like a long time ago for me, and I need to go back.
Shall we move forward? Saraswati Mata can read text 20.
Yes. Prasangamajaram pasham atmana kavayo vidu sa eva sadushu kritu mokshadvaram apavratam. Translation. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But the same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Purport. Here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditional life, and the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed. It has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness, and attachment for Krishna or his devotees is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. A living entity, by constitution, has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates perpetuates our conditional state. But the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. Here it is recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees, the sadhus. And who is a sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or a long beard. A sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who has unflinchingly engages in devotional service. Even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service, if one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. Sadhu reva samantavya. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahma or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirms this. Lava matra sadhu sange sarva siddhi haya. Simply by a moment's association with the sadhu, one can attain perfection. Mahatma is synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee of the Lord is Dwaram Ahur Vimukte, the real road of liberation. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimukte Stamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Bhagavad Gita 5.5.2. Rendering service to the materialists has the opposite effect. If anyone offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then by association with such a person, the door to hell is opened. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord. But if one associates with the sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, a worshipper, and a sincere servitor of the Lord. These are the gifts of a sadhu. If we want to associate with the sadhu, we cannot expect him to give us instructions on how to improve our material condition. But he will give us instructions on how to cut the knot of the contamination of material attraction and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. That is the result of associating with the sadhu. Kapila Muni first of all instructs that the path of liberation begins with such association. So a few thoughts come to me. It's clear that every jiva has the propensity to become attached. That's an inherent quality that cannot be stopped. And if the attachment is to something material, then that's going to lead to further entanglement in material life. But if that attachment can be transferred to Krishna, something spiritual, then that is the pathway to liberation. I knew someone my age who from birth became attached to a blanket, of all things. She couldn't go anywhere without it. She could definitely not sleep without it. And even now, at the ripe old age of 60, she still needs some remnant of that tattered blanket. So this is crazy. This is Maya, material attachment to something that's so useless and keeps us from our real business, which is to attach to Krishna and his devotees. I'm thinking of the first time I ever heard about Prahlad Maharaj as a child, from my Gashiba, my Nana, and she was telling me how at such a young age, tender age of 5, Prahlad Maharaj managed to convince his childhood friends, born in demoniac families, that Vishnu, Krishna, is our only object of love, our dear most well-wisher, friend. And that really the goal for all of us is to have Krishna as our sole object of love, not somebody that's number 2, 3, 5, 10 on our list of attachments. At that time, I was a little bit confused, and because I said to her, well, I love my family, and then I'm attached to my friends, and I have toys on that list. And then she said, I forgot to mention that I'm attached to my body as well. But anyway, she asked me why I had so many on my list. So I was telling her that I experience different kinds of happiness from their association. And then she said, well, the things that we become attached to the body or bodily relations or possessions, if they were giving us complete happiness, complete continuous happiness and fulfillment, why is it that we need so many things on this list? And why are we constantly changing our attention and focus and attachment from one object to the next? Because I didn't really have the answer. So she said, well, Prahlad Maharaj gives us the answer. Our only object of love is Krishna. Once we can come to that, no more searching. Searching comes to an end. No more changing objects of our focus, objects of our attention. Because once we have Krishna as our object of love, then that will give us complete and total fulfillment. I wasn't really ready to deny my attachment to her and my mother, and so I honestly told her that. So she said, so she asked me, why are you attached to me? Why are you attached to Mata? So I told her, because I feel cared, protected and loved by her. So she said, well, these are very limited abilities that any of us have. In some small extent, we can maybe care or protect or love someone. Definitely we cannot protect them from birth, death, old age and disease. And she said, don't forget, any ability that anyone ever has, the source of that ability is Krishna. If Krishna didn't give you the ability to do any of those things, then we couldn't do them. So since we know Krishna is the source of everything in truth, then he's actually the one in truth, giving us the care, protection, and love. So shouldn't he be our only object of love? And she said, well, look at the form of Srinathji, because the form of Srinathji is very different to the form we see Tribhangi Krishna. He has his left hand raised, and she asked me why. That answer I knew, because he's Girdhari, and he raised the Govardhan Parvat for the protection of the Vrajvasis. But she said, yes, but why is his hand, there's another reason why his hand is raised. He's calling out to all of us to come under his protection. And not just the Vrajvasis. And then she said another thing that's different is because both his feet are planted firmly on the ground and his eyes, they are looking downwards at his lotus feet. So why? I didn't know, but she revealed he plants his feet firmly on the ground so that so he's telling his devotees he's standing strong for them. Nothing can move him from his protecting his devotees. And the reason his eyes are looking downwards at his feet is because he's looking at all those surrendered dear devotees who are never going to be out of sight, out of his vision. So she said, now what is our address? So of course, foolishly, I told her what my current home address is. And she's like, no, our permanent address is the lotus feet of Srinathji. So how do we get to our permanent address and have Krishna as our only object of love? Well, this verse actually gives us the answer. Sadhu Sangha. 1 second of association with the sadhu is priceless and rare. And how rare is it? And I seem to recall somewhere someone telling us that imagine that there's a small piece of driftwood with one hole floating in an ocean. What are the chances that a single tortoise swimming in that ocean needs to come up for air, pokes its head through that hole in the wood? Well, Sadhu Sangha is even rare than that. And I remember Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj drilling that point he used to say, Bhaktistu Bhagavad Bhakta Sangena Parijatye. Association of the Bhagavad Bhakta is so rare and vital to perfection in Bhakti Yoga that without it, it's simply not possible. So a sadhu is someone who's 24/7 attached to the favorable service of Krishna. That's their only business. And in the Caitanya-caritamrta, Madhya Leela 20.83, the verse says, Krishna Bhakti Janmulahaya Sadhu Sangha Krishna Prema Janme Tanho Puna Mukhya Anga. The root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, association, service of my dear devotees is superior than association of myself. So only by serving the sadhu can we get this opportunity to imbibe the sadhu's devotional qualities and finally attain Krishna prema. Conversely, association with materialistic people leads to imbibing their qualities to varying degrees. We have a saying in Gujarati, if you tie a horse with a donkey in a stable, then over a period of time, that horse may not be able to bray as well as a donkey, but will certainly learn how to kick like one. Thank you, Haribol.
There's a question from Murari Gupta Prabhu. If Krishna is self-satisfied and renounced, where does our inherent characteristic of attachment come from? Oh, Ekendra Prabhu responds to Murari Prabhu, Krishna contains everything that exists and he is attached to his devotees. Thus we share that quality. And there was another comment. Oh yes, Ananta Shesh Prabhu says, keeping one foot in material enjoyment and the other in endeavors in developing Krishna consciousness will never work out. Have to step into the Krishna consciousness realm with both feet.
I was going to add to my husband's comment to Murari Prabhu. Also, the jivas are subordinate, they're tiny, so they cannot exist independently. So they have to attach themselves to something. I mean, we're always attached to Krishna. We don't have, there's no choice in that matter. That's who we are. But under illusion, we think we have to, we're still tiny and we know it, even if we try to be big. So we attach ourselves to various things that are substitutes for Krishna, various aspects of the material energy. So I think it's part of our nature as tiny, dependent jivas to seek, to attach ourselves to others.
Kendra Prabhu says, Srila Prabhupada seems to be saying that the only way to properly transfer our attachment is to become attached to devotees. And Saraswati Mataji has raised her hand.
Sorry, I have a question the previous verse. So if my understanding is that I know there's three kinds of transcendentalists, and so if the first one is like the Brahmavadis, so we understand their destination is the Brahma Jyoti, but what about the Paramatmavadis? I'm not sure what their destination is. They're sort of in the middle there. We know the bhaktas, the dear devotees following bhakti yoga, the perfection is that they enter the spiritual world. But what happens to the Paramatmavadis? They don't go to the Brahma Jyoti, do they? That's not their destination.
Tulsi Priya Mataji says, isn't that what the higher planets of the sages are for? Saraswati Mataji says, thank you for the answer. Kendra Prabhu said, I can do some research and try to start addressing the Paramatma Vadi's destination, but I don't have any quick answers myself immediately.
Because I thought that for the Brahmavadis, that's the first level, and that so they get to the stage of like the Sat, like Krishna Sat Chitanand, so they reach up the Sat, they understand the eternity. But then I thought the Paramatma Vadis, I thought they would get to level 2, the Chit, so they know about the knowledge part of that Krishna has, and then it's only the dear devotee Vaishnavas know about the Ananda, the blissful nature of Krishna, the Supreme Personality. Anyway, thank you.
Something just occurred to me. Maybe this is going to be helpful, maybe not. But I've been trying to ponder Saraswati Mata's question about the Paramatma Vadis and their destination. But Krishna seems to address this, at least on one level, in the 6th chapter, verse 47, where he says, Yogi namapi sarvesham madgaten antaratmana, that if you're actually a perfect yogi, Shraddhavan bhajate yomam, sameyu tatamo mataha, the real perfect yogi becomes attached to devotional service. So whatever his aspiration may have been at the start of his practice, apparently a bona fide prosecution of that path leads one to devotional service. But we also hear there are so many yogis that don't achieve that perfection and become sidelined, derailed, detoured, distracted by their own mystic perfections.
Thank you very much, Kendra Prabhu.
But then we hear that unsuccessful yogis take birth in the families of rich mercantile caste or in the family of devotees. So
yeah, they're given another chance.
Yeah.
Everybody's given another chance. Even if you want to be a lover of cats and dogs, you get another chance for that. Krishna's an equal opportunity prayer fulfiller.
well, you get another chance as long as you're born in a human body.
So I was just going to ask, is the stumbling block for the yogis, there's obsession to attain the siddhis, or the yogic power? Is that the stumbling block, that they become distracted with that?
That's what we hear mostly. And it doesn't take me a whole lot of soul searching to see that that's what would probably happen to me as well. Ooh, look what I can do. And then if you have enablers, it becomes even more entangling. Ooh, look what he can do.
There's also, I always forget his name, the yogi who was distracted by the copulating fish. So just an allurement by the material energy can throw them off if they're not careful.
Yeah.
And not if they're not careful, if they're not devotees.
Sobhari Muni.
what I mean.
Ananta Shesha Prabhu says, I would think being born in a rich mercantile class would be an impediment, wouldn't it?
Not if they have their roti, kapda, and makan all in place, so their energies are not going into just acquiring even the basic necessities of life. I think I read that somewhere.
Didn't Prabhupada say that about Americans, his American followers, that because they had so much wealth and still they were dissatisfied? If they didn't have that wealth, they would have been struggling for survival, and they wouldn't have had the time or leisure to be dissatisfied and look for spiritual life.
Yeah.
But then Gandhi used to say that for the poor Harijan people, the roti is their Bhagavan. Right now, they cannot concentrate and focus because they got empty bellies. They're lying on the streets. They don't even have the roti. The roti becomes their Bhagavan because that they need that in order to, keep their body fit to be able to focus on devotional service. So that's where I think that there's some souls going into a home where they're not having to constantly strive to even get the roti. So then they're in a position where the energy can be focused, not just to fill the bellies, but on Krishna.
Then that reminds me of the quote from Prabhupada's Message of Godhead, which I'm trying to pull up. Leaders who think a hungry man or woman has no use for God or religion. Just lost the window. Hungry man or woman finds no meaning in God in general. People in general, under the leadership of such materialistic men, are gradually descending to the status of lower animals, devoid of all transcendental realization, knowing nothing beyond their material bodies in the material world. Leaders who think a hungry man or woman has no use for God and religion should be told emphatically that no man or woman in the world is not hungry, and that it is precisely the hungry man or woman who has to understand the meaning of God and religion now more than ever.
Right.
But I think there's a difference between the individual application of that and a leader using that idea as an excuse to not promote God consciousness in society. Oh, no, we can't focus on God consciousness because we've got to feed people. Yes, the individual might be so distressed that he cannot focus on spiritual life, and we help them. But if a leader is using that as an excuse not to promote God consciousness in society, it's a feeble excuse. He can do both. It's not one or the other. He can feed people and give them God consciousness, especially if you're distributing prasadam.
We need leaders like that. Ananta Shesha Prabhu asks me also, when you see the rich, lavish lifestyles of the wealthy, it seems to be an easy impediment. And my thoughts on that is if you take a person who's directed towards just material enjoyment and you give him a bunch of wealth, he's just going to do more material enjoyment. You give him a bunch of money, he's going to blow it. But if you have somebody who's proven themselves to some degree as a transcendentalist, and you give them a bunch of money, look what they do with their money. So you have to be qualified. Go ahead.
Oh, I was also thinking too that there's degrees of wealth. We say that, if you're that this middle this middle realm, the middle planets of Earth, that's the perfect, because we're not enjoying too much like they are in the heavenly planets, and we're not in the hellish planets. But so there's a certain level of wealth that is too much, because you become distracted by that. But it's sort of a middle ground, and that having maybe slightly more than you need, which makes you wealthy, in an objective sense. If you have more than you need, you're automatically wealthy. That is, that may be helpful or it is helpful, because then you're not struggling to survive. You have leisure, you have resources. So, maybe stinking rich isn't a good condition, but a little bit of wealth probably is.
I was thinking today, I was having a conversation with someone who had read the book, The Killers of the Flower Moon, about the Osage murders. There's even a movie that's come out now. They were saying, and it's just the extent of greed that people have, which can just bring out the worst in them, road leading straight to hell. And it's all about these native First Nations that were given a reservation site, and on that site oil was found. So what happened was that all the Caucasian, the Americans that were Caucasians, they felt, no, we have to somehow or another take this from the First Nations. We gave them the reservation, so there was a contract in place. So now we can't snatch it outright, but let's think of sneaky ways to get it. So then they started marrying the Caucasian Americans to these First Nations. And then they found that what they could do is kill them off, the wives, one by one. If it was a woman who was to inherit all this, then kill her, poison her, shoot her, whatever, get rid of them in such a way that they can't be found out straight away. And then their surviving spouses, Caucasian spouses, they can then inherit this this oil well, basically. And for years and years, they ended up killing so many of them, First Nations people, in order to get their rights to this oil. It's just this guilt, this greed that can just take you straight to hell. There's no end to the amount of greed someone can have. Haribo.
And Kendra Prabhu said, Ananta Shesh Prabhu, have you so far heard any satisfying responses to your points you raised? Ananta Shesh Prabhu said yes. Kendra Prabhu said, text 21 is a fairly long purport. Do we want to have kirtan or read more? I think we should have kirtan, because we won't do justice to it in a short time.
Our usual kirtaniyas are not here. Well, Saraswati is here.
Can we have Dana Mataji do it?
Oh, sure, if she's willing.
I was hoping Healthy Mataji would do it with her beautiful voice.
Who?
You.
I led at the opening. That's why I'm asking for others. So I guess it's your turn then.
Oh boy.
Thank you for the compliment.
I'm not the best.
You will do fine.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Horrible. Sorry. That's the best I could do.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahangsa Paribrajacharya Ashtotara Satya Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Sama Veta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Dana Mataji, for the nice kirtan. You're getting favorable reviews in the chat box.
Thank you. You guys are so sweet.
All right. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayadvaita Swami and friends Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari.
Thank you everyone for your participation. Hare Krishna.